3 young teens arrested for bringing loaded, fully automatic handguns to a crowded parade just pleaded not guilty.
A judge released one of those teens to electronic home monitoring, while the other 2 remain in detention for the community's safety. KOMO's Lynn Wynn joins us live from the Chinatown-International District tonight, where police tracked those teens down earlier this week. Lynn.
Right. Well, all 3 of those teens were arrested here on Sunday, and all 3 were found with loaded weapons, 2 of which had been modified to be fully automatic, according to police.
Suspects, get down!
Body camera footage from Seattle police shows officers arresting a 13-year-old and 2 14-year-olds after they caused a panic at the Seafair parade in the Chinatown-International District. All 3 were found with loaded weapons, some of which were modified with a Glock switch to be fully automatic.
Oh, there you go.
That's not me.
According to court records, the family of a murder victim killed in Auburn was marching in the parade in honor of their son when they saw the 3 suspects, who they believe are connected to the murder and feared for their safety. Court records state one of the teens made a show of pulling his hoodie up from his waistband and reaching into his waistband to retrieve a handgun, which sent everyone running.
And all of a sudden, we saw people running away, a little bit of screaming, and I thought I heard some gunfire.
Police say some of the teens are still being investigated for a possible connection to the Auburn murder. All 3 appeared before a judge and pleaded not guilty to the charges, which include unlawful possession of a firearm and unlawful possession of a machine gun. All 3 are now connected with support services like community passageways, and a judge released one 14-year-old onto electronic home monitoring.
My goal is to not see this child before me under these circumstances again. And I'd rather see him get services and try to get the things in place so he doesn't come back than just do a catch and release. Right. Because that's not going to serve him, and it's not going to serve our community.
And we did speak briefly to one of the suspects' families outside of court. They didn't want to appear on camera, but said that their son is not involved in that Auburn incident. I did get a chance to ask where those guns came from, and the family said that they did not know. Reporting live in Seattle's Chinatown-International District, Lynn Wynn, KOMO News.
The 3 teens arrested at a parade in the Chinatown-International District for flashing loaded, fully automatic guns were in court this afternoon. This is the arrest video here from SPD. Now, they pleaded not guilty, and a judge released one of the teens on electronic home monitoring. I talked with Lynn Wynn about what else we learned from that court hearing today. Lynn, thanks so much for joining us here in ARC Seattle tonight. So what did you learn in court today?
So all 3 were back in juvenile court today for their arraignments. That's where they enter in pleas. All 3 pleaded not guilty to the felony charges they're facing, very serious felony gun charges, including unlawful possession of a firearm and unlawful possession of a machine gun for 2 of the loaded guns that 2 of those teens were found with, that police say were modified with Glock switches to become fully automatic. So that's where those charges stem from. And then after the arraignment hearings, the judge also took up some detention matters for all 3. And so she ordered one of the 14-year-olds to go home on electronic home monitoring. He's set up with different community support services, groups like community passageways, while the other 2 have been ordered to remain in detention for the community safety for now, though they are due back in court on Tuesday to take up the detention matters again. And that's where the judge will just see where everyone's at and possibly release them onto electronic home monitoring there then.
So, Lynn, I'm curious, and you may or may not know the answer to this question. This may be something that you ask down the road if you don't already know it. But usually in a case like this where someone's caught with a modified handgun that turns into a machine gun, i.e. one of those Glock switches, a lot of the time, or at least it's supposed to be this way, that it turns into a potential 10-year federal prison sentence for having something like this. I don't know how they'll end up prosecuting this. We see so many of these Glock switches and so many people arrested with them, but never really hear about how they're being prosecuted in regard to, federal laws on machine guns. Do you know anything about that?
Right. So as we were discussing, that they are facing those serious felony charges related to having a machine gun and having those loaded guns at the parade. As far as the sentencing, I'm not completely clear on how long they're facing, but I did hear the judge mention in court today that one of the teens is facing between 0 and just 30 days in detention. And their goal when they were discussing that was really, the judge had mentioned she doesn't want to just do a catch and release. release, where they arrest him and then he serves his 0 to 30 days and then he's out. They wanted to set him up with community supports like that group called Community Passageways, who we talked to before, who just kind of connect with at-risk youth and try and help them stay on the right path, basically, and not end up back in juvenile court.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm also asking here is, do we know that if this will be bumped up to federal charges for the teens caught with these modified handguns that have been turned into machine guns? Because sometimes, at least they're supposed to, the federal government's supposed to get involved when you have a machine gun like this, because that is a federal crime as well, from what I understand.
Right. At this point, it's just staying locally in King County Superior Court in the juvenile court there. And I have not heard anything about them possibly being bumped up to federal charges, but it's certainly worth the question.
Okay. Do we know anything about prior criminal histories with any of these kids?
Right. Well, in court today, it was mentioned that at least two of them seem to have some kind of prior criminal history. The 13-year-old, according to his attorney, has no criminal history, but the two 14-year-olds, I'm told one of them had a prior property crime that was diverted and dismissed, I believe they mentioned about a month ago. The other 14-year-old, they didn't specify his priors, but they did say things in court like this is not his first rodeo. So it appears he has been here before. And the judge was also reluctant to release that 14-year-old onto electronic home monitoring because of his history.
You know, a lot of the time they just cut those things off and go back out and commit more crimes. What I'm also interested in is where these guns came from. I understand you had a chance to talk with family members to ask them about the guns that they had.
Right. So all three were found with loaded weapons. Seattle police had released that body camera footage. So you saw them pull the guns from all three. And two of them had been modified with a Glock switch to become fully automatic, according to police. Now, I did talk briefly with one of the suspects' families outside of court today. They didn't want to be on camera, but they said that, or they claimed that their son is not involved in the Auburn murder that is mentioned in the court documents. If you'll remember, this all started because the family of a murder victim believes that these three teens are somehow connected to that murder. There was some kind of issue at the parade, and that's what started all of this. So the family said that they are not involved in that Auburn incident. I did get a chance to ask, where did these teens get these guns from? And the family claimed not to know. So.
All right, Lynn and Wynn, thanks so much for the updates and the developments as we continue to see more crime involving kids. And really, these are kids. I mean, a 13-year-old and two 14-year-olds is just really shocking when you hear this continuously. And we are basically hearing this every day, it seems like. But thanks for the updates. We appreciate it. And as always, thanks for being with us here on Arch Seattle tonight. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Preston.